Boxing Lowdown, and I have a very special guest with me. I've got my dad, and we're here to talk about some of the events that have gone on over the last week or so, and that surrounds the issues around the contract negotiations between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. Now, just for those that don't know, over the last week or so, I believe it was last week, earlier on last week, Deontay Wilder's camp came out and said that they had a 50 million bid for Anthony Joshua to fight. Deontay Wilder released a video via his Instagram saying that, you know, the money's in the bag, you know, the money's there, 50 million. And since
got the bag,
he said they got the bag.
They got that bag, man.
And since then, you know, they gave Team Joshua 24 hours to respond, and the fight would be pretty much on their terms with the offer. And the 50 million arose from Anthony Joshua saying in an IFL interview that if he received 50 million, he'd take the fight straight away, no problems. So since then, there's been no meeting, there's been no negotiations, and has the deadline passed? I'm not sure, but what are your thoughts overall with the offer and Eddie Hearn's response, because he seems to believe it's a PR stunt? What are your thoughts with regards to that and those issues with regards to the contract?
Right, first of all, I just want to say, these are my thoughts, my opinions, so I'm just looking at things the way I see it, so I'm going to tell you what I think now. The trouble with these matters is that unless you're actually there, or one of the respective parties involved, we don't absolutely know what's going on, because both parties are going to put forward the side they want you to know about. So I think that's important to be clear on that.
Yep.
But just looking at things from my perspective and the way I see it is, I heard about the, let's rewind. A week, 2 weeks ago, Anthony Joshua was on the record on IFL TV. Shout out to my boy Coogan, IFL TV. Keep up the good work, bro. He said quite categorically that he's willing to fight he's willing to fight Wilder. Give me the 50 million and he'll take the fight without no hesitation. Okay,
We can all agree on that, yep.
right, so we all saw that, and fair enough to Josh, you know, every man's got his price, he put that on the line. Then nothing too much happened, and then last week what we saw was Wilder come out, put a video out and say, listen man, the money's in the bag, you know what I mean? They got that bag, the money's out there. And I was like, whoa, you know what I mean? So, and then we had all these subsequent back and forth, back and forth. Now, what I would say about that is that you've got to give credit to Wilder and his team. They came out and they said, listen, we got the money. They were very vocal about it. They put the video out. And my initial thoughts was, they kind of blindsided Eddie. They kind of outmaneuvered Eddie Hearn with that offer. Mm-hmm. Because, and you can tell when you saw Eddie Hearn being interviewed, you know what I mean, it's not many times he looks lost for words or a little bit unsure of himself, but it
was on the same day he received the offer, wasn't it?
Yeah, he definitely looked a bit taken aback. Mm. And my thoughts on that was, my perception when I saw that is that he was genuinely taken aback, and I would go as far as to say outmaneuvered. He wasn't expecting that, man. You know what I mean? And what I would also say is this, and this is something that I've spoken to you about previously, and I've also spoken to a few friends about, some of them are in the boxing game, is that you got to look at Shelley Finkel and Al Heyman, the guys who are behind this offer. These guys ain't no joke, man. You know what I mean? Shelley Finkel's been in boxing, I think it's like 40 plus years. Major player in the game, right? And he comes from a promoting music background, which has been very successful. He's 80 odd years old. He's paid his dues in the sport. And like Al Heyman, who's recent in the game but has made a lot of big waves, these guys, Shelley Finkel and Al Heyman, they're not given to hyperbole, you know? So I must admit, from my perspective, the way I see it, if those guys say that they got that money in the bag, then I'm tending to believe they have. I think they have, man. You know, I mean, you can't. These guys are not guys that they're not from the sort of internet social media area. They're not looking for hype. They're not hype. They're not looking for hyperbole. You know what I mean? If they tell you 50 million's there, if you want it, trust me, I think that they've got the money. That's my personal belief.
Here's my issue with it now. I believe that Eddie Hearn also believes that they may have the money. I don't think he disputes that they can't get the money. But the issue that got to me with regards to the whole offer and everything else was the 24-hour deadline, which you rightly said to me that could be just giving them time to respond and not actually accept. But there was a meeting arranged on a Friday and that got cancelled. And then there was a next meeting arranged after that. That also got cancelled because Shelley Finkel and the rest of Team Wilder said that, you know, there's no point of you meeting us if you haven't accepted the offer. But from what I understand is if Eddie Hearn has come out and said he's interested and he said that we're willing to have a meeting with Team Wilder, then why would they cancel the meeting?
Right, okay. Those are good points. And let me just take the first one from the top. So they've made this offer, okay? It's a verbal offer. 50 million for Joshua if he accepts the fight. Now, my understanding is, and I know a little bit about this through business deals I've been involved with, is that the 24-hour deadline was basically for Eddie Hearn to express an interest. So in other words, they put the offer out there, and if you agree in principle, then, okay, we'll say, right, then the next stage in that negotiation process is to sit down and to start thrashing things out. Because let's face it, it's going to be a lengthy process. You know what I mean? A fight of this magnitude, any fight, anywhere close to this magnitude is going to take weeks, if not months, to come to some final arrangement on, you know what I mean? Especially given the egos and the people involved. So I wasn't thinking for what, it doesn't mean to say, yeah, you agree in 24 hours the deal's done. No, it doesn't mean that. What my perception of what they said is that you've got 24 hours to agree in principle to this fight being made, okay? Now, I know that Eddie Hearn has said he was interested in making the fight, but somehow his actions don't give me that confidence that he's truly interested in the deal, for whatever reason. And I'm not, you know, crapping on Eddie Hearn. I'm sure he's got his reasons as to why he'd be a little bit, you know, he'd be a little bit wary of just going full on with it. But what I would say also is that I've done some reading around and researching of my own, and I'm getting to understand that the reason why those meetings were cancelled was because Team Wilder, Shelley Finkel, Al Heyman, whoever it is behind the scenes, were insistent that Anthony Joshua be part of that meeting, be part of the negotiation process. So it seems to me as if they were reluctant to meet just with Eddie Hearn. They wanted Anthony Joshua there because I think they think that with Eddie, they don't want to have the meeting with Eddie and then Eddie go back and slightly misrepresent the terms to Anthony Joshua. I think they want everybody around the table and start negotiating in principle about the fight. Okay. So
I understand that. And
I think that's why those meetings were cancelled, because they couldn't get Joshua to the meeting table.
But don't you think that with Eddie Hearn being in New York anyway, so he's literally down the road, well not down the road, but he's in the same area as you are, and he's got a card on at the Barclays Centre. Andy Joshua's obviously not there. I think he's on holiday somewhere, wherever.
I think he was in Morocco or something.
Yeah. Would a preliminary, like, just any sort of, like, if it's not the actual negotiations taking place now at this stage, would not a preliminary meeting just to speak about what is going to be offered in the upcoming meeting be useful? Like, to not meet at all, and then to obviously have Dominic Breazeale come out and saying that he should be expecting to fight Wilder in August, which could be a backup plan. But would you not have wanted to even have like that, or just like to meet up and just speak about the contract? Because there's a lot of talking in the media, and there was Shelley Finkel releasing emails out to the media before responding to Eddie Hearn. So naturally, I'm going to look at that and think, well, that must be some sort of publicity stunt then. Or is he just wanting Eddie Hearn to come across as someone that's afraid? Or, I don't know, like...
Well, I think the way things are evolving is that there's clearly some tension between, particularly Eddie Hearn and Shelley Finkel, not Shirley Winkle. As he keeps and you see, that's where I've got a slight issue with Eddie Hearn. Listen, man, the man's a very good promoter. He does his job very well. He's the #1 promoter currently in the UK. I don't think anybody can truly argue with that. I know Frank Warren's very established, very good promoter himself. But if we're keeping it real, Eddie Hearn's the #1 promoter in Britain. I see he's also trying to make waves in America, and that's all good. And I've been to some of Eddie's shows, and I've worked with my boy Coogan, assisting him doing film features. So I know how slick the operation is. And I've met Eddie Hearn, and he's a nice guy. So, you know, can't take that away from him. He's done extremely well. However, I must say I was a little bit perturbed at him going after Shelley Finkel in that way. I thought it slightly disrespectful of him to calling that 80-odd-year-old man Shirley Winkle, man. I mean, come on, man, give the man some respect. And I think all of that has parlayed into this kind of mistrust between the two parties, which is a shame because I think it's hindering the overall game, which is to get this fight on. Because let's face it, man, this fight needs to happen, man.
Absolutely.
This is the biggest fight in boxing right now. It's the biggest fight in boxing for years. Could be one of the biggest ever. So people need to put aside their egos and, you know, get round the table and make this fight happen, because Anthony Joshua needs it, Wilder needs it, boxing needs it. So I don't think Eddie Hearn or Shelley Finkel, Al Heyman or anybody else should be obstructing this, the main objective, which is to get this fight made.
So is that an opportunity missed then, with the two camps not being able to meet? Because I'm sure Eddie Hearn will be flying back over to the UK now. Is that an opportunity missed then? Like, what happens now?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I think that fight, it has to get made. I see that there's a lot of... yeah, absolutely. If not next, then it has to get made within the next 6 months to a year.
Do you think it will be next, or do you think it will be towards the end of the year?
It might not necessarily be next, but I think within the next 12 months we will either see them in the ring, or there'll be a date announced, or because, you know, Wilder versus Dominic Brazil, or Joshua versus Povetkin is not really what the fans want to see, and it, you know, and we don't want to get into the Manny Pacquiao Floyd situation. You know, we want that fight made. You know, I mean, boxing's on a high right now, especially in this country, and we want to see that progress, and we want to sort of come away from in previous years where the best didn't necessarily fight the best for whatever reason, and then what would happen is the two camps would turn around and blame each other. We don't want that. I personally think Joshua wants to fight. He's not scared of Wilder. I don't care what anybody says from across the seas. He's not scared of Wilder at all. No. Wilder's definitely not scared of AJ. The two guys are warriors. You know what I mean? Warriors go to war. So it's up to the guys in the suits to put their egos aside and make the fight happen. We all want to see it, man.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a great fight. Yeah. And let's face it, they fight. They can easily have another fight, and have another fight after that. Ali Fraser had 3 fights. I mean, you can go throughout history and see great fighters who fought more than one time. There's no reason why these two can't do that.
Well, part of the contract offer that was released by Shelley Finkel and Team Wilder was that there was no rematch clause in the contract. But of course, during these meetings, this is where they can sit down and negotiate.
Yeah, absolutely.
That.
Yeah.
And with the 50 million, what do you make about the thoughts of some people that said that it should go, the money should be in an escrow account? I know that Paulie Malignaggi was saying it, and I've seen a couple other people say it.
That's a good point.
Is that a way to just like say, look, the money's in the escrow account, now let's talk?
Yeah, but I think those things will materialise after you've sat down and spoke. I think what Team Wilder, and again, I'm just looking at it from, it's just my perception. They've basically said, listen, AJ has gone on record as saying he wants 50 million for the fight. We can come up with those sums of money, which I do believe. Listen, you've only got to do a cursory search on Google, okay, and then you can find out the background of Shelley Finkel and Al Heyman. These guys are very rich men, and very rich men know very rich men. So if they want to put together a team of investors to put that money up, trust me, they can do that. If that's what they want to do, I firmly believe they can do it. So when they say that that offer is there on the table, I, for one, I'm not going to turn around and say, no, you're lying. It's a publicity stunt. I firmly believe that they can. So that being said, the money's there. They want Team AJ and Eddie Hearn to agree in principle to the fight in a serious way, not just say on YouTube videos, yeah, we're interested. You know what I mean? Make contact. Say, listen, we want to sit down with you and get the negotiations in earnest going on how we can put this fight together. And I think it can be done. Why not?
So what do you think happens next then? Because there's a lot of back and forth action between the two. Eddie says that he's been trying to set up meetings and they've been cancelled. Shelley Finkel said, you know, that there hasn't been a response within that period saying that they accept. What happens now? I mean,
what happens now
something's
is
going to have to be done soon.
Yeah, exactly. Wise heads have to prevail. Now, whether, like I said, egos need to be put aside in order for this fight to be made. Because there's a school of thought that, you know, I've heard on a number of different websites, both here and American websites, that say that the reason why Eddie Hearn has been non-committal so far, or they adjudge him to be non-committal, is because they think that Eddie Hearn wants to have control of the negotiations. And obviously if the Americans are putting up the money, then presumably they're going to hold the upper hand in the negotiations. So Eddie Hearn's kind of pushing back against that, and that's why, you know what I mean, we're getting all this back and forth and personal insults and all the rest of it. So I don't know how much of that is true, but what I do know is if this fight is going to be made, and it absolutely has to happen, then wise heads need to prevail, egos need to be put aside, and people need to sit down in earnest and look each other in the eye as big men and say, right, how can we make this fight? They're not going to agree on absolutely everything, we know that. But you know what? They had, we saw with the Parker fight, AJ Parker, there was a lot of tension between, initially, between Eddie Hearn and Dave Higgins, is it?
Yeah, from Duke Venture.
Yeah, from New Zealand. But eventually they got the fight made. I mean, initially there was offers made to Team Parker that they felt were derisory. There was the back and forth, the typical back and forth that goes on. But then, within a matter of weeks or whatever, that was overcome and the fight was made. The same type of energy has got to happen here. And then I think we'll get the fight made. Because let's be honest, right? Let's be fair to Wilder. When Eddie made an initial offer of 12.5 million, which I personally thought was derisory.
I was just going to ask you, what did you think about
that offer? There was no contract there, was there? They didn't say, oh, we got a contract. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They just put that out there publicly, and predictably, the Wilder team knocked it back.
But did Wilder's team? Oh, they knocked it back, so they wouldn't have asked for a contract. But do you think if they accepted and they asked for a contract, they would have got it?
Yeah, these things would follow. These things naturally follow, you know.
Because I just think that with the 50 million on offer, he doesn't have. There's obviously a full contract is not going to be drafted up there and then, but I'm sure that if somebody wants to meet you to discuss like, let's put it in this situation, like we spoke about before, like buying a house. Like you preliminary agree to buy the house, don't you? And then that's when you go and you see the contract and everything that's drafted up, and then you like make.
Well, let's take it a step back. If you want to buy a house from me, right? The first thing you got to do is get the money up, right? So you get your deposit, and then you go to the bank to get your loan and stuff. And then what a lot of banks will do, they will say, we'll give you a certificate of credit. So the money's there, so that when you approach someone to buy the house, and you're negotiating the fee or whatever, you can say, and the person says, well, look, have you got the money? I say, well, actually, I have. Here's my certificate of proof that I've got the money. And then negotiations flow from there. It may be that you bring the guy down in price, maybe the guy might up it a little bit, or, you know, you throw in a few things that, you know what I mean, it's all part of negotiations. So for Eddie Hearn to say, oh, we haven't had a contract yet, I think that's a little bit disingenuous, because I don't think the contract's going to be worked up so soon.
Do you think if they put the money in the escrow account, then that would have been able to get?
Yeah, that sounds like a good thing to do. Yeah, I could see that happening. But what I would say is that I'm not buying it that Team Wilder don't really want to fight, because to me it's obvious that they do. You can see the energy they're putting forth. Wilder's desperate for the fight. He's absolutely desperate for that fight. You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to hear that when people say, oh, they just put that out as a PR stunt. They don't really want it. They do want it. And AJ wants it as well.
AJ
What
definitely
I'm
wants it.
asking myself is, does Eddie want it? Does Eddie want to do the fight with the Americans being the chief promoters or whatever? Probably not. And I think that's where the stumbling block goes.
So do you
And
think
that's
that?
why I say egos need to be put aside.
Do you think that this offer could have been made then, in a smart tactical way, to get Eddie Hearn to up his original offer of the 12.5
Yeah,
million?
at
Or-
this point, everything's on the table, isn't it?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I think what that offer showed is that the Americans are willing to get this fight on. They wanna. It's a statement of intent, isn't it, by the Americans? They're basically saying, "Listen, man, hey, the money's no object. You want the money? We got the bag. You know what I mean? Let's make the fight. You know what I mean?" And I think that, and now I think they've been very clever in the way that they put. People can call it a publicity stunt or whatever. But I don't think it's a publicity stunt. I think these guys do have the money. They do want the fight. They are capable of putting the fight on. And B, I think that Eddie, as good a promoter as he is, my personal opinion is that he got outmaneuvered. He got blindsided by that. And I think that that's part of the reason why we see him, you know, push back in such a way, because I think he got caught off guard.
Okay.
Got caught slipping, man. You know what I mean? So
Yep, I get that.
you know what I mean? So and not only that, like I said, I've been reading up on certain websites and, you know, boxing articles and so forth. I even saw one today by Dan Raphael where he's saying that he believes firmly that the offer is legit. And you have to remember, for those of you who doubt, Dan Raphael is not a fully paid up member of the Al Heyman Club. You've only got to see the history between those two. You know what I mean? When Al was going through his little tribulations with Golden Boy, Dan Raphael was very firmly in the Oscar De La Hoya camp. So he's got no real love for Al. So if he tells you that he believes Al Heyman and Shelley Finkel have the money and that they're legit, then to me that's just another sign that what I said earlier I believe to be true, which is that these guys are serious. It's not just a PR stunt.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it develops over the next couple of days, weeks, hopefully not months, because we need to get a situation resolved soon.
Someone had to make the first move, and the Americans did that. I mean, okay, you could say that Eddie also made somewhat of a first move, but I mean, come on, man, 12.5 million is a derisory offer for a fight of this magnitude. I think everybody knows that.
Well, you'd get a lot of people that would say that, you know, it's 4 or 5 times higher than the highest purse that he's, you know, received.
That's an old chestnut. I mean, listen, this fight is way bigger than any fight either of them have been involved in before. So of course the numbers are going to be higher. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to say, oh, we're giving you, you need to take this because it's 3-4 times more than what you've ever earned before. The fact is, Wilder is a WBC champion. He's fought his way into this position. You know what I mean? The man's got a hell of a record. He's a world champion, legit world champion. And that needs to be taken seriously. And let's face it, man, that is a, if not a 50-50 fight, you know, that's a very well-matched fight, isn't it? You know what I mean? You could make a case for either one of them win. I mean, personally, I'm riding with AJ. I think he's more technically sound and has the better fundamentals. But then having said that, stars make fights. And Wilder is definitely the bigger puncher of the, or one punch hitter of the two. You know what I mean? He's got tremendous athleticism. His confidence is through the roof right now. And you should never underestimate or, you know, underlook a man's confidence. If a man truly believes he can do something, then 9 times out of 10 they can. So, you know, and then the characters involved. It's a great fight, man. This is why, you know what I mean? Eddie Hearn, Shelley Finkel and Al Heyman owe it to the fans, the boxing fans, to make this fight happen. Like I said, it doesn't have to be just one fight. It could be 2 or 3, depending on how the first one goes.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. I think it needs to get made.
It needs to get made, man, for real.
Give us the first undefeated heavyweight champion for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And yeah, it needs to happen.
And we don't want the fight to happen when the two guys are past their primes.
Absolutely.
As what happened with Mayweather and Pacquiao. And then inevitably the fight doesn't live up to expectation, and then everybody turns around and says, oh, that fight, man, waited so many years for it, and it was a disappointment. These two guys are on a high right now. You know what I mean? They're making waves. Everybody knows who they are. All this stuff about Eddie was saying, oh, walk down the street and nobody don't know. Listen, man, the boxing fans know Wilder is. Once the promotion teams get to work, that fight will be one of the biggest sporting events in many a year. You know what I mean? So, come on. Let's just put aside that personal stuff and get down to making the fight. Eddie Hearn's a great promoter. Shelley Finkel's a great promoter. Al Heyman, they all know this stuff. Let's get them around the table, put the egos aside and work for the common good. And then we can get the fight made, man, and then it's bombs away.
Absolutely, man. Well, listen, that's the thoughts of my dad with regards to this situation. Let me know what you guys think about it, man. A lot of opinion, varied opinion on this subject. So let me know what you guys think, whether you agree with my dad or not. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. We'll happily go back and forth and debate it out with you if need to be. And yeah,
I think the one thing everybody would agree with me on is
we
that
want to
this
see the
fight
fight
needs to
happen.
happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
no doubt
you know what I
about
mean,
it.
even if it's us, the fans, social media bloggers, people like yourself, with it, we need to put pressure, man, on these promoters to make this fight. When they start throwing out other names out there, and no disrespect to the likes of Dominic Brazil or Dillian White or Povetkin, and those are all good fighters, but the fight that everybody wants to see. When I go gyms, man, or even when I'm out socially, even guys that don't really know boxing, okay, they're not talking about AJ versus Povetkin or AJ versus Dillian White rematch, even though the first fight between those two guys was a great fight. They're not talking about Wilder versus Brazil because they had some beef in some hotel in America. The fight everybody wants to see is Wilder versus Joshua.
Yeah.
That classic America versus Britain, man. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And Eddie has to realise this, man. You know what I mean? He has to realise that this is the fight people want to see. And it's got to happen, man. And you know, Joshua is not scared of Wilder.
No way.
Absolutely not, man. The
Not
man's
at
a
all.
warrior. You know what I mean? The man was... I've been following Anthony Joshua from he was an amateur. From his 19 years old or whenever it was he started, man. You know what I mean? When he was going to Azerbaijan and competing in world championships and fighting a home guy on his home turf and winning a silver medal, hotly contested, many people thought he won. The guy's a warrior, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And the challenge is out there, and that's what warriors do. They accept the challenge from another warrior. So all this, I mean, I've seen stuff on sites in America where they're suggesting that AJ's scared. He's definitely not scared, bro. He's not scared, bro. No. Trust me. He's just not as vocal as Wilder. Yeah. They're two different people. You know what I mean? You see that on road, you know what I mean? You get naturally confident, verbose guys and they're this and that, then you get another guy who's not as verbose. Yeah. But don't get it twisted, still man. The man can, still bringing heat, man. And Joshua is not like that. He's not cut out. He wasn't brought up that way. You know what I mean? He's brought up different. Whereas Wilder now, he likes to express himself. He wants to be that man in the room, the loudest man in the room, that alpha male type guy. Well, they're both alpha males. It's just that they express it in different ways. Yeah. But American boxing sites, don't get it twisted. AJ is not scared, not one bit.
Definitely not.
He will be bringing it, man. Come fighting night, trust me.
For sure.
You know what I mean? He didn't win. They don't give away Olympic gold medals. Wilder didn't win an Olympic gold medal. No. You know what I mean? So it is what it is, man.
Yeah. Well,
that's not to say that Wilder couldn't win, because, like I said, man, it could be who hits it, who lands the most significant
in that particular fight, man.
But I just think that with Joshua's greater experience in terms of the types of guys that he's fought, his amateur background, his stronger boxing fundamentals. I think I'm an old school guy like that. I think that it's all very well having that big punch, that knockout power, but you can't rely on that forever. I mean, we've seen times, and I know we're sort of digressing onto different subjects now. We've seen times in Wilder's career when he's been outboxed quite comfortably at times, but then he's come back to land the equaliser. Fair enough, fair play, man. I'm not one of those guys who's going to crap on his style and say, oh, look at it, man, the man's windmill winder. No, he gets the job done.
Absolutely.
But AJ also gets the job done. You know, he's also got a fantastic KO percentage record, and he's shown, both as an amateur and as a pro, is that when going gets tough, man, you know what I mean, he can dog it out. So I'm not, you know what I mean, it's very, you could make a case for either man.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to see this fight get made more than anything else.
Yeah, man,
I'm hoping that it will. It's all good, like everyone debating about the negotiations, but we just need to put pressure on these guys and let's see the fight happen. So
we don't want what's happening with Amir Khan and Kell Brook. You know what I mean? Where, you know, by the time those two guys fight, I mean, some may argue that already, that both of those guys are already past their best. So you're asking the fans to pay top money to see guys who are not at the level that they were when they're at their prime. So technically, the fans are being shortchanged. No. AJ's hot right now. Wilder's extremely hot right now. The rivalry's as good as or strong as it's ever going to get. Strike while the iron's hot, man. Let's make it happen. I want to be there if it's in England.
Yeah, hopefully.
Britain.
Hopefully.
In fact, I want to be there if it's in America, if I can make it.
Yeah, definitely, man. But,
you know what I mean? How many fights would you say that for? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's a massive, massive fight. Heavyweight boxing at its best.
That's what we all want to see.
And that's what everybody wants to see. So again, I say to the guys behind the scenes, put your egos aside and work for the common good of not just the fighters, but the sport itself.
Let me know what you guys think about it, man. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Dad, thanks for coming on.
No worries, man. No worries.
And let's hope that there's some progression with regards to these negotiations. But for now, catch you guys on the next one.
Eddie, Shelley, Al, make it happen.